systems. You know, they're made for working with documents.
But it's very, see, they have a mechanism built in that's actually pretty slick for what you want to do with it. There's a built-in operating system routine where you could every single application can register with the OS the different document types that it knows how to handle, be it doc, be it PDF, be whatever. And then so every application can also, if it encounters a file like through a download or through a transfer, it can ask the operating system, give me a list of all the different apps that are installed that can handle a comic book file, and then they can invite the user to simply hand off this explicitly launch this app and then launch it with this document.
Right. Now, we talked about this a couple of times here, but just we keep getting the same question over in the chat room, so we will. I will humor you. Well, John wants to know, and I'll ask John: does this mean that MacBooks get phased out?
No, I don't think so at all. I think it's, you know, I think Apple's become a big enough company that they can walk and chew gum at the same time. I mean, and I think when you go shopping, you're going to know which one. If you're going to buy one machine from the Apple Store, you know which one you need. I mean, if you really need that Mac software, the real, you know, what we think of as personal computing today, this isn't it. This is something different.
And Mike, do you think that there's sort of a fracturing, we're hearing this report, that there might be two camps starting to emerge at Apple, where that is the mobility space, and then this other camp, which is the MacBook, iMac space, and one is going to win out in the end, the mobility space? Do you believe that or buy that?
I mean, I think it's clear from the iPhone, the iPod Touch, and the iPad now that this is a vision for where computing is going to go and where a lot of people are going to spend their time interacting with their devices. It's a new metaphor. It's a different way of doing business. I think that Apple has a tremendous history and a tremendous place in the market for personal computing, and it's not going anywhere. It's hard to think of it as like a family squabble internally, because there's not, for a company that's got more than $40 billion in cash, it's not like there's a shortage of resources. Maybe there's a shortage of smart engineers, and a few years ago when there was the Mac OS X update delay that coincided with the iPhone launch, there was a lot of talk about, is the company stretched too thin in terms of the brain trust?
Yeah.
But now I don't think it's like, I don't think that conversation goes on internally.
Mr. Macworld, what's your take on that? Two different camps?
Yeah, I think John's right. I think they can walk and chew gum at the same time. They're very efficient at sort of breaking up what they do, and Mac OS X sort of underlies all of it. And for now, in the short term, you know, MacBook is a different product than the iPad, and they've got different uses, and they may see some cannibalization over time. But you know, if you're editing video on the go, you know, you're not going to use an iPad.
Exactly, Natalie, as a laptop replacement. Keep getting these questions here. You know, we talked about this a bit. Is it a netbook replacement? Is it a laptop replacement? Would you, in the time that you've had it, get rid of your MacBook Pro?
No, of course not. But I think we'll see a lot in the wild. We won't see a lot in the wild in someone's office. If I walked into someone's office and that was their only computer, I would be very shocked. But I'm with Andy on this. It's a brand new thing. It's a good travel computer. I think I would probably ditch. I have an HP Mini Note. I'd probably ditch that for this on the go.
And you know, the weird thing is, I had this on a Matthias iRiser's like laptop stand next to my iMac, because as I'm doing research, I just have this out so I can just test out things, make screenshots. And the weird thing is, even when I wasn't researching anything, I found this works as a really great sidecar to what I'm doing, because it's a dedicated screen that does nothing but show me what my email is doing.
Right.
It does nothing but show me what Twitter's doing. Right.
Right.
And in terms of my, maybe this is just me, but in terms of focusing on a project I'm doing, I don't have to tab into another window. I just simply look over here like a rearview mirror, look back, and I'm still exactly where I was before.
So you can have like your
Scobel
NASA
or something.
Yeah, almost.
Yeah.
You have your Scobel
It's like the Twitter
NASA
peak,
setup.
Clayton.
The Twitter peak.
The Twitter
Well, I
peak.
mean, it's hard to really top the Twitter peak. I don't know. Does this question, Mike? Does this top the Twitter peak?
Will this kill the Twitter peak?
Is this the Twitter peak killer? I feel the Twitter peak. The Twitter peak is Walking Dead at this point. It's not
Jason, will it kill the Wiki reader?
Ooh, tough one.
It's like beating a dead horse.
Or the Chumby.
The Chumby.
It's the Chumby killer.
or the Nazbatag, whatever that
Let's get a
rabbit
little
thing is.
sort of esoteric here in the 5 minutes we have, or get up in the clouds a little bit. Is this going to hurt? We saw netbook sales starting to slow a little bit in the run-up to the iPad launch. John, what's your take? Do you think people, when met with that sort of purchase, they go into a Best Buy, which we'll know they'll have them tomorrow at Best Buy, and they're looking at a netbook versus an iPad?
Well, I think I don't know. I think there's two types of people who buy quote-unquote netbooks. There's people like us gadget hounds who have many computers, desktops and laptops, and I have a laptop and a netbook, that type of thing.
Right.
And that is really not a common scenario. That's not how normal people buy computers. Now, for somebody else who's saying, you know what, I only want to spend about $300, $400, $500 on something to take around with me, I think this competes with that, and I think it's far more compelling. I mean, I think it's, for what a typical consumer, someone who's not technically inclined, is going to, make heads or tails out of it. I think they're going to love this.
Real quick question from, yes, and I think we know this answer, from Andy. Will it have to sync before it works, Ross? You have to sync it before it works. No, you haven't been allowed to sync it.
Out of the box?
Good question.
You don't
You
have
got to
to do
attach
that.
it to iTunes to a Mac or a PC.
You do
Okay.
first.
First.
Yeah. So
Okay.
far, I think one day that's got to go away because these should be untethered. But for now, it's just like the iPhone and the iPod Touch.
That's the one thing I couldn't test. I got mine,
Well-
like, Apple had preloaded it, so
Right,
it
but-
was in a version.
But
Yeah,
just to
it's
clarify,
not
clarify
syncing.
that you do have to connect it for syncing, but you can take it out of the box, turn it on, and use Safari and
Right.
you can use the built-in apps. You just do need something else to back it up and to synchronize it with.
And also to apply system updates.
And to apply
Right. You won't get any backup without a PC or a Mac.
One of the big things we were talking about in the commercial break here, and we can talk about this in a few minutes, and then we're going to talk to John about iPhone rumors in just a second, is, Andy, we were talking about storage and what sort of device you should buy. I mean, if you want the high end, the big daddy is the 64 gigabyte model.
Right.
3G, $829. What do you buy?
Yeah, I mean, if you got $829, you don't care. You're of course going to get the best one out the gate. But really, I think that if you're trying to figure out if you're thinking about should I get I only have $700, should I get the 3G model but a small capacity, or get the biggest Wi-Fi model you can? I really think that all of your money should go into getting 64 gigs on that device. Because if you're going to rent a movie, that's a 1 gigabyte download. Every one of those comic books we saw in the Marvel Comics app is 150 megabytes. The real star quality of this is going to be the ability to have every piece of content, every document, every resource, every book, and every piece of entertainment I could ever want on it at once. If I have to pick and choose and keep resyncing it every day to delete the movie that I saw to make room for the document that I need, that sort of cuts down on how much you're going to like your
But
iPhone.
I do think the poor man's version is going to be just fine
yeah.
as well, because you're
Yeah.
going to go back and forth to your computer so often, because especially if you only have the Wi-Fi version, you're not going to go to 3G and keep updating.
Yeah, my mom, for instance, I mean, she's sitting there on the couch and she's just reading, jumping in Facebook, and I was watching her this week and I was home, and she, with her laptop, she was on Facebook, she was in email, and she was on the web a little bit. She has an iPhone, she still doesn't know how to put music on it, or she still doesn't use it for that purpose. So I think the use case for that scenario is
Yeah.
great, and I think this
And who
version...
consumes 64 gigs of anything in one
Well,
sitting?
it's not just one sitting. It's that if I'm preparing for a week, do I want to make sure that I've watched this? Again, I've got this. I wanted to download this new comic that I saw online, but I didn't have room for it. So what am I going to delete? No, I want to watch that movie tomorrow. You want to remove the human from the decision making, whatever possible.
All right,
I
John,
agree.
quick question in the chat room here. Of course, we were talking about this iPhone. We've been talking about iPad all week. We can't let John go without iPad rumors. Of course, he took Wall Street Journal to task this week for being lame, for not offering anything new in their review or their rumor roundup of Verizon iPhone coming to iPhone anytime soon. What can we expect? Is there some sort of... Or what do you expect? What can
What
you
do I
guess at?
expect?
Your best guess about what we're going to see in the next iPhone?
Well, I think that they're clearly on, just like with iPods, where every September there's an event and there's a New Year's worth of iPods for the holidays. I think that Apple is clearly on every June, July, there's going to be a new iPhone. And I think this year's is the first that's really going to be significantly upgraded over what's come before it. I think the size is going to stay the same, but that the number of pixels is going to double. Or if you want to go by area, quadruple. That it'll be a 960 by 640 display. Which is interesting. Now, some of the other phones that are out there, like the Droid, have significantly higher pixel counts on similar size screens. And text looks great on them. So why would they add, you don't hear people saying, hey, my iPhone doesn't have enough pixels. Well, wait until you see text with twice the resolution.
And we all know that that's one of, Steve Jobs always talks about the font, and he loves fonts. I think he reads books on fonts, and he took a calligraphy class, whatever, in college.
And type is gonna look so much better with double the resolution. Because that's once you get to that type of resolution, you're talking about print quality resolution.
But I think that's chiefly because of the typography controls of the iPhone operating system.
Right.
I actually don't necessarily think that the high resolution of the Android makes it better because it's thin uprights, so
Right.
they tend to disappear.
Right, I think on Android that the system font, which is really like the only font, is sort of designed for lower resolution screens, so the high resolution is almost wasted on Android.